I'm on a quest to watch all the movies and TV shows about the tales of King Arthur and his knights. Let's check out everything that came out in the early 1990s. Merlin and the Dragons is an animated film from 1991. A young King Arthur can't sleep, so he goes to Merlin for help. Merlin tells Arthur a bedtime story about a boy named Emrys and dragons. Emrys learns about magic, is almost killed by the evil King Vortigern, and witnesses a fantastical battle. It's based on the book by Jane Yolen, who used elements from Historia Brittonum and History of the Kings of Britain. The narrator states that this takes place shortly after Arthur becomes king, but no specific time period is mentioned. The animation was adapted from illustrations by Alan Lee, which means it looks like a medieval fantasy land and it's gorgeous. There are hokey, conniving wizards whom I question their validity and no mention of religion. This was super cute. It really is just like having a bedtime story read to you, only with great voices and amazing visuals. I would say this is another perfect way to introduce kids to Arthurian legends for the whole family to enjoy together. 24 minutes, rated for all ages. The Legend of Prince Valiant is an animated TV series that ran from 1991 to 1993. Valiant is an exiled prince who dreams of being a knight of Camelot. But first he must get there and prove it exists. Along the way, he meets two friends. Cue background love triangle. Once the three of them make it to King Arthur's court, they will be mentored by knights like Sir Gawain and Sir Bryant, face different enemies, and do a bit more growing up before meeting their destinies. This has a continuous storyline, watching a young man and his friends grow up at King Arthur's court. The story is largely based on an American comic that came out in 1937, but it also integrates different popular characters and stories from the more common Arthurian tales. This goes by cartoon logic, which means anything goes. We have Vikings and Saxons, Christianity and magic, dinosaurs and crazy sea monsters, costume designs for many different eras. Sometimes they speak in a weird pseudo-old British, and other times it's blaringly modern. I went into this wondering how many episodes I would actually watch, and ended up watching all of it. I genuinely loved the characters and the growing storyline. This is a fun option for families to watch together with their kids. Though I have seen some online talk about parents these days thinking it's too violent. 65 episodes, each about 25 minutes, rated 13+. Guinevere is a movie from 1994. Guinevere is raised as a warrior alongside Lancelot by Morgane Le Fay. In the end, she must choose between her love for Lancelot and her devotion to her people. This story places Guinevere in the spotlight, making her the real brains and power behind Camelot. King Arthur is more a warrior and figurehead. Merlin needs Guinevere to do the real ruling, a very feminist interpretation of the classic tale. The story is adapted from Persia Woolley's Guinevere trilogy. This bears no resemblance to any other version of Arthurian tales I've seen so far. Even when they reference real historical figures, they get their facts wrong. I think they really just cared about the love story and girl power. Guinevere is a pagan who worships the goddess who must marry the Christian King Arthur. Personally, I was not a fan of this. For me, the acting and overall look of the movie was lackluster. The basic premise, making Guinevere the hero, wasn't a bad idea, but the execution was boring and did not convince me. 96 minutes, rated 13+. First Knight is a movie from 1995. Lancelot is a wandering sellsword who has no attachments and no fear. Guinevere is the Lady of Lyonesse, trying to protect her people. She agrees to go to Camelot and marry an older King Arthur. King Arthur is a really great guy all around and is ready to settle down after long years of fighting. Lancelot and Guinevere have their fateful first meeting, and your complicated romantic hero story begins. The story has elements from this French writer, who I refuse to butcher his name, who was known for his Arthurian stories in the 1100s. Other than our main three characters and their classic romantic triangle, a few other names you might recognize are thrown around, but Overall, the show's no relation to any of its fantastical counterparts. There is no magic in this world and only one or two references to God. This is really silly, but the only thing that threw me off was King Arthur and his knights all wear blue. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure in all the other versions they wear red. By far, this is my favorite of all the movies centered around Lancelot and Guinevere. The acting all around is fantastic. The acting for King Arthur and Guinevere are in my top 5. I mean, it's Sean Connery. Enough said. The script is engaging and the sword fighting is really well done. Definitely would recommend. 134 minutes, rated 13+. That's it for this main list. If you still haven't seen enough, here are some modern parodies and time travel shenanigan options. The Fisher King is a movie from 1991 that explores the tale of the Fisher King in a modern setting. Army of Darkness from 1992 is the third movie in the Evil Dead trilogy. Our hero with a chainsaw is sent back to medieval Britain where he defends Lord Arthur from an army of the dead. King Arthur and the Knights of Justice is an animated series that ran from 1992 to 1993. Due to a series of events, Merlin grabs up a modern-day New York football team to replace King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. Kids of the Round Table is a movie from 1995 about a young kid, Alex, who finds Excalibur and goes on an adventure. A Kid in King Arthur's Court is also a movie from 1995. One moment, young Calvin is playing baseball. The next, he's at King Arthur's court, helping the king keep his crown. Thank you so much for watching. Next time, we'll be checking out everything from the later 1990s. Happy watching!